94.3 The Talker or the Bold Gold Media Group.
The following presentation is brought to you by the host of the program, who is solely responsible for its content.
And how do we speak while our beds are burning? Good morning, everybody. This is 94.3 FM, The Talker, Sanity Check, Libertarian Lou, Tea Party Mike. X is on the line. Frank Sorick's in studio. If you want to start your weekend off right, or not so right, as we're hearing a little bit here, you could call in and blow off a little steam. 888-577-4487. That number is 888-577-4487. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning. You know, here in Texas, we're proud to hear that the state highway system has been rated within the top 10 in the nation. And I know what Frank's thinking, Lou. He's thinking,
right off the bat, you're going to get him going.
Same thing here in Pennsylvania. But, Frank, I figured it out. What's going on here is that along with these great highway systems, we have the highest fatality rate. So our lawmakers are really, in Pennsylvania, are really looking at the best interest of the Pennsylvanians. Because when you have enough holes in the road, it slows everyone down, Frank, and it keeps them all safe.
It's like speed bumps.
That makes a lot of sense now.
See, you've hit the nail right on the head. But also, in defense of Pennsylvania, remember, we have more freeze-thaw cycles than any other state in the union. We have more highway miles than any other state in the union. Even though Texas is almost twice our size, we outnumber the highway miles. How is that possible, Michael?
You know, I'm not quite sure how that is possible, Frank.
Especially,
there must be roads not being used, because I cannot even imagine with the size of Texas that there's more roads in Pennsylvania.
We have more highway miles than any other state in the union. Lawmakers have said that time and time again, and they can't all be lying, right? I've never heard a lawmaker would tell a liar.
Oh, don't get me going. Will you please, right off the bat? We're in enough trouble from last week. Go ahead, Michael. I'm sorry.
Well, they need the roads to be able, the lawmakers to be able to get out of Harrisburg quickly when the people come marching there, Frank. There is a game plan.
Is that what that is? Oh, okay. I would think with the influx of children into Texas that you guys would need more highway miles.
Well, you're absolutely right, but see, they take paths and routes that we don't see, Frank. So except for Route 10, but Route 10,
right? Interstate 10, we saw that, right?
Exactly, but Frank, it's so interesting, and you begin to see, how different states deal with different things. And believe me, Texas doesn't have it right either. For sure, they've got a lot of different problems here, and they're just different problems. But I just look at Pennsylvania when I was there last, and I thought I was in a war zone because the roads to Scranton were horrible. And, I go back to say I rented a Volkswagen Jet, and I should have rented a Humvee at the time to get through the roads to Scranton. But it's really interesting to see how parts of Pennsylvania, or lots of Pennsylvania, where they're calling it the Rust Belt, is really to blame for a lot of the decisions our legislators have been making over decades.
See, he moves to Texas. Now he starts picking
on. Now he starts criticizing
Pennsylvania.
I can't take it anymore. Michael, from now on, you need to follow my advice. Only visit Pennsylvania in the middle of winter for a couple of reasons. You're in Texas. It's hot there all the time. You need the snow when you come up here. Also, it will fill in the potholes. You won't notice them.
Matter of fact, that's exactly the logic, and that's what I'm going to probably do next time, Frank, and I appreciate that.
There you go. Good skiing here in Pennsylvania. Come to Elk Mountain, come to Montage, whatever.
So, Michael,
there's a plan.
So there's a couple subjects I definitely want to touch on today. Another busy week. We went to a number of meetings, went to a number of different, whether it's rallies or certainly council meetings, stuff like that. One of them was the Dunmore community meeting, which we want to talk about. Frank, we want to touch on foreclosure mania a little bit. Today, there's 3 rallies, as I understand it. John, you might just have to just make sure I get the right names on these, but there's 3 rallies in Kirby Park today. One is the judicial reform and the custody for cash rally, which we will be at. I believe there's is it a weather modification rally, John? Is that what it's called, or something to that? What's that? What did he say? Anyway, so it has to do with weather modification, and certainly those folks will be there. And then also there's a I believe, medical marijuana reform rally that's going to be there. So there's all going to be all kinds of folks in Kirby
now
Park
that's
today.
what we need to be going to. We already have callers thinking we're high on pot as it is, and now you want to go to a medical marijuana
Michael,
rally.
Michael, he just
Attention,
threw me a
listeners.
softball. He just threw me
Attention,
a
listeners.
softball.
Lou will be advocating for pot.
No. Well, wait a minute. But here's one of the things that we do want to talk about, Michael. One of the things that have been happening in Northeast Pennsylvania here, and it's been on the radar, and it certainly gathered national attention, is this manhunt going on in the Poconos for the accused killer of a state police officer,
Right.
And the wounding of another one.
Correct.
Go ahead, Frank. You were jumping in.
This guy needs to be brought to justice for what he did. He took away a father of two young children, but also the PSP needs to be truthful in what exactly happened. They are painting this guy as a rabid cop killer who would shoot up any cop, anytime, anywhere, and nothing could be further from the truth.
It sounds that way. And so, Michael, what caught my attention this past week, and certainly going back into and we spoke a little bit about the drug laws and stuff like that, and I certainly want to talk about some of the fire that we've taken, especially about what we talked about last week, not only about Panda, but also about free and equal elections. But listening to the radio this past week, and certainly once again, what is happening down in the Poconos, and it seems as though an awful lot of people are getting very tired of the actions that the police are taking down there. And what jumped out at me was it was an elderly man that called, and I'm listening to him, and he said he's appalled. He was very appalled about reports people are being kept from their homes and in the search for this Freen guy, and that as a conservative, the Constitution is sacrosanct. And that it is, and as far as I'm concerned, that's the way it should be. But one of the things that obviously jumped out at me, Michael, was the fact that, is it only sacrosanct? And this is one of the criticisms we've had here over the last few weeks, and maybe since we started the show. Martin Luther King might have said it best. We need not do nothing new. Just listen, to what God has given us on paper, and that is in the Constitution and in the Declaration of Independence. And are we going to close our eyes and not talk about the things only when, maybe Obama doesn't follow the Constitution, which we know happens all the time. But we have to be honest with ourselves and call this out, because to me, and Michael, I know you feel the same way about this, is that we've said this all along. If something is going to change in America, and we're going to pull out of this mess that we're in, I've seen two reasons for that. One is that we do have a Constitution which must be followed, and that we're awash, and we've been blessed with very many minerals, and we've talked about traveling around the country. So we have to be real honest with ourselves that. And free to talk about these things, that it's just not about the other guy. But when our guy doesn't follow the Constitution, we have to hold them on the carpet also, Michael.
Oh, there's no doubt about it, Lou, and the point's well taken. There's been certainly attacks on the Constitution from both the Republicans and the Democrats. I mean, the NSA, it goes on. And yet we have to watch and be very careful that our freedoms are being lost because of supposed protecting of the citizenship. And what happens is, one of the things that I find so interesting for the Poconos, for example, if there wasn't such an attack on the homeowner and having guns and being able to have their own guns and their own weaponry to protect themselves, we wouldn't need to have police coming into our homes. We'd be able to do that on our own because, quite honestly, Lou, and it's certainly going on a different tangent, is that I really believe that the homeowner and the family need to protect themselves, because so many times the police officer isn't going to get there on time. And we need to really, really look at the Constitution and who's destroying it. And I have to tell you, folks, it's the Republicans just as much as the Democrats.
I think it's just sometimes it's just we pick on the leadership and all those things too, Michael. But what happens is when we have legislators that do not call their own party out, which is what we've been talking about, and saying, wait a minute, this is an embarrassment. And we're going to get on to that again a little bit, only because this past week, Michael, as you know, we spent, besides going to these other meetings and all this other stuff, and Frank, you're listening here too, today, the Carbon County gets delivered to 33,000 homes, the Carbon County Independent Gazette. And those stories of custody for cash and certainly the Panda article that we did based off our interview with Dan Johnson last week, that's getting into people's hands. And it's becoming a powerful force. And so anyway, I talking about that and how we are able to make a difference and these stories getting out. Getting back to the drug thing, because I want to nip this in the bud, because once again, if we don't address it, Michael, sometimes it's just out there and people assume that, okay, they're not saying anything about it. I don't come to this show high on drugs. I don't do drugs. I don't come here. And if people have an argument with us, have an argument with us. Don't take personal attacks. And my whole thing on the drug laws, Michael, and I know you disagree with me, and Frank, I think you do too, or at least in the general premise. But, the right to pursue the course in your life that you wish to take, it means so much. And as long as it doesn't interfere with the health and welfare of others, when I hear people use the argument that it's harmful and we need to ban it, is it not the same, Michael, with almost everything, every kind of behavior? If we eat too much, if we drink too much, if we smoke too much, if we gamble too much, if we shop too much, almost every behavior taken to the extreme is harmful. And that's one of the reasons why I'm an advocate for legalizing drugs. Not that I use it. It is harmful. I know it's harmful. It's certainly harmful for people that certainly abuse it. And we've thrown out this warning, Mike, that, and I hope people understand this. And it's certainly about Obamacare. And one of my biggest complaints about Obamacare is that everything is always for the greater good. And it's always going to be about lowering people's, lowering your cost. Because if somebody, has taking in too much soda or salt or alcohol or smoking or chocolate, all these things need to be limited. And that's what's scary about this. And that's why for me, following the Constitution is so important. And you guys can jump in but I want to make sure that folks know that's the reason why I take the position that I do, at least with the drug stuff, is because it's, for me, we have a right as an individual, as long as it doesn't cost you, Michael. I think that's the important thing. It has to always come back down to, you have to have some kind of self-involvement here, right? Frank?
Right. And just so our listeners know, when you're talking about the person who called in and left the message stating that, they think the people on this show must be on drugs because we held elected officials accountable for their actions or non-actions. No,
the exactly thing was your attacks on Lou Barletta and Lisa Baker are outrageous. The people on the radio sound like they're high on pot.
Right. And that's because they didn't agree with the position that we took on this show. And one of my favorite quotes is Socrates. When the debate is lost, slander becomes right. The tool of the loser. That's it. Bottom line here, you resort to personal attacks because you have no argument to defend Lou Barletta or Lisa Baker. They did those things that we accused them of. That's it.
Michael, another thing also is that in Carbon County, which once again is being mailed today to 33,000 people, same thing. And actually, with all, we only had 2 complaints overall. For all the stuff that and all the things that we're doing, I don't think.
Couple
this is
years in print and only 2 complaints.
Yeah,
Not bad.
I don't think this is a landslide in what's going on, but. An individual once again wrote in Carbon County, and they're complaining about an article that was written about Andy Otrowski and saying that it seemed to be a little one-sided about how what Andy stood for, and I think the response from David Bradley, who is the business manager down there for Carbon County, business development manager, was exactly point on. He said, "Thank you for your response. Without your voice, this transparency mission fails." And this is what we're telling folks, and this is what we really want to get across, Michael. I've said it, you said it, Frank said it, John said it. We don't agree with everything that goes in our newspaper, nor should we. the mission of our paper is to give people a voice.
It's a true community newspaper.
And you know as well as I do, Frank, you remember when people wrote about us when we first started this, get this garbage out of here, we can't stand. We printed those letters.
That's right.
We don't mind printing those letters. We will put it out there. So if you have something to say, if you don't agree with an article, if you don't agree with our stance on certain things, you have a voice.
Right.
Use it.
Put a letter to the editor. Write a column. Have it published in the Independent Gazette, and put your side of it out there. If you think our research is flawed, point it out. If you have a different opinion, again, make that known to the people. That's what a community paper is all about.
And that's what an independent press is all about, is that you're willing to put stuff in a newspaper that you don't necessarily agree with. Right. And that's what's so important. And Michael, I mean, I think that whole transparency thing, if people don't take advantage of what we're offering, then the transparency whole issue does fail. Right? Because we want to give people that voice.
It really does. You know, one of the things in the traps that we get into, Lou, and an individual who made the claims of being high on pot, wherever it might be, I can almost guarantee you that if those comments were made towards Barack Obama, if they were made towards Hillary Clinton or someone on the other side, that instead of being a pot smoker, you would be running for the Nobel Prize, Peace Prize, because he would think you would be a hero. And this is what we have to watch, because there is good and bad on both sides, and we have to be able to recognize that and to be able to call it out. You know, and this is just as a registered Republican, I'm very disappointed in so many things. Now, some of the mistakes within the Republican Party are made out of ignorance with the NSA. I don't think that some of the folks that voted for it even gave any consideration of the rights we would be losing because of it. Thought it was a noble thing. Perhaps maybe when they look back, they realize that, okay, you know what? The alternative opinion has a point. But we have to watch that, and we can't just keep looking at the other side for the problem. We have problems with our own family within the Republican Party, and we need to look at it, and we need to deal with it, and we need to bring those topics up, Will.
Point well taken, Michael. We're going to take a break, and we'll get back onto this subject when we're back. You listen to Sanity Check, 94.3 FM, The Talker.
4.3 FM, The Talker.
Don't listen to a word I say. The screams all sound the same.
Nada. No words.
Don't
Nothing.
listen to
a
those
word.
guys.
Don't listen to those guys. They're going to get your blood pressure up. 888-577-4487 if you want to get your blood pressure up. 94.3 FM The Talker. This is Sanity Check. Good morning, X.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
We're doing good. We do figure get you in on this conversation a little bit early.
Guy today. You know, I just love the fact that Attorney General Eric Holder is stepping down, the most incompetent Attorney General we've ever had. You know, you look back here over the course of his tenure, you know, you have all these people trying to, like, whitewash his history. This is a guy that can't find a single person to put into jail, even after the pharmaceutical companies were fined tens of billions of dollars. There's a single guy that supposedly for the party that's going to clean up Wall Street has taken in all of this money from Wall Street, but fined them tens of billions of dollars, but still can't find a single banker to put into, let's say, detention at a nursery school.
X, what party was that? What party was that? Who didn't do that? What party? The being Democrat? Because I have to get on the Republican good side again here.
Well, you know, then that's the farce that's been going on here. You know, the idea being is that, you know, you go and you go to a liquor store and steal a pack of gum. You got a greater chance of getting jail time than you do if you
steal billions,
hundreds of billions, and committing major fraud. But, you know, and then this is where the whole too big to jail has come from.
Too big to jail.
You know, for various reasons. It only encourages this behavior because now all the companies do is just put that on their balance sheet as a cost of doing business, just like paying the electric bill.
Oh, boy, I got to tell you, Michael, no matter where you look, and certainly it's incredible the amount of information that we've been getting and it keeps building on so many different areas. So no matter almost where you look these days, it's not a good thing.
It's not, excellent. And when I look at, matter of fact, I was watching Geraldo Rivera defend this attorney general as if he was one of the best attorney generals ever, and I almost think that Geraldo does it just as a entertainment for us, because I don't believe he believes what he's saying. But the man has done everything he can. It has nothing to do, again, with party. And I want everybody listening to realize that. It's not about the party. It's about what's going on within our government, from the highest level right all the way down to our local levels. People are self-serving individuals, and we're not holding them accountable. So those folks who do get offended at attacks that we might make on the radio, if it's your particular party that's in favor that we're attacking, it's not that we're attacking your party. We're attacking the individual. And Eric Holder happens to be one of those that are certainly has lots of room for attacks because he's done so many things unconstitutional acts.
Michael, one of the things, and X also, is that if they're upset about what we did last week, certainly we're putting out a video, and the only reason that it hasn't been put out this week is just that we've just been just overwhelmed with work that needs to get done, and certainly like once again getting Carbon County out. We have an Arlington paper coming up. We definitely Wyoming County, Bradford County, Susquehanna. We have another Wilkes-Barre Scranton paper that needs to come out for the election edition, and we're right back into Carbon County. So things are heating up, but we have the clips isolated. Me and John sat down this week and was able to isolate the clips from last week. And every state representative will be getting a video, and it will be Constitution Smuckered. And it's going, and not only every state legislator, but all their workers also, people in their thing are going to start getting this, and they're going to have to start defending what is it about free and equal elections that people don't understand, and that's the only other way we could do this. And so that will be coming out probably sometime this week, I would think, somewhere along the way, and that should raise some eyebrows, I hope, and maybe get people thinking, because and if that doesn't work, we're going to go right down into, pretty soon we'll be putting up billboards and say, is your Constitution Smuckered right in Smucker's district? I mean, I don't know what else to do, but that's the only way we could do things. X or Michael, go ahead, jump in.
Well, here's what we need to do is the awareness to the people, because this is where it starts, Lou. When we get those videos or what you're sending out to the legislators, and they'll look at it, and some will mock us, some will say nothing. But as we begin to have the people become aware of what's going on, and once again, if you're a Republican or if you're a Democrat, to sit back honestly and say it's okay to make sure that other individuals who are outside those parties are not allowed to be part of the election process, you're just lying to yourself. And you're not really, in my opinion, a true American that really wants to see their Constitution protected. So this is why we're putting these things out there, Lou. It's not a personal attack on anyone.
No,
but it's an attack on the Constitution. And if you happen to be part of that attack on the Constitution, then we're going to tell you about it, Lou.
There you go. And I couldn't have said it better myself. So,
and the great thing about what you're talking about, Lou and Mike, is just the fact that unless the public can step back and honestly say to themselves, you know what, this is wrong. The whole idea of the semantics here of, how can you twist a statement like fair and clean election to equal what we have? It was funny, like this past week, the Democrats are doing all they can to call what is really Gulf War III not a war. But at the same time, there's a war on women. I mean, what do you call it when you drop more ordnance than the Japanese dropped on Pearl Harbor over the last 4 or 5 days? Is that a war? I mean, when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, there were no boots on the ground. I mean, there's 1,600 American troops that are in a combat zone. Okay, that's not boots on the ground. We're playing a semantics game here all of the time. It's no joke. It is right out of Orwell's 1984. War is peace, and whatever kind of definition you want to use to fool the public, because the last thing the Obama administration wants to do is that they don't want to vote on this in Congress, and secondly, they do not want to go into the presidential history as the Peace Prize winner is a guy that started Gulf War III. And this is really what ISIS and so forth is about. And that's one of the great things about the paper. You could just write column after column just talking about how people just use the wrong words to describe something when they've got a dictionary right in front of them.
You talk about Syria, and I did bring that up with the guys here before going on air today. X on the radar is definitely getting back down to Allentown and interviewing those individuals that we talk with, the Syrian Christians. Once again, Allentown has the largest Syrian Christian community in the United States. And it was eye-opening, and hopefully I'll be able to get that done this week and be able to report back on the radio next week, and maybe even have an interview live with some of those individuals about their reports and what their firsthand reports of what's happening in Syria, how Assad fits into all of this stuff, and how their families are affected and by the rebels and the whole nine yards. So I think that's real important to make sure that we get that information out also.
Lou, let me just throw this out there just to bring everybody up to speed. Benghazi was about illegal weapons that were being shipped to Syria to arm the rebels to overthrow the Assad regime. So the CIA and what both people in the Republican and Democratic parties are trying to cover up is the weapons transfer. Remember, it wasn't until the summer after Benghazi that Congress authorized the arming of the rebels. Now, remember, these are the same rebels that McCain and a few others were over there, that somehow, the jihadis that are over there, you're supposed to tell me that none of these people were ISIS to begin with? I mean, of course they were ISIS. These are radical Islamic people over there that basically want to bring into Syria, which people don't want to understand, was actually a secular country, more so than almost any of the others in that particular region of the world. Reason Syria had to be toppled was because Saudi Arabia and Qatar want to put a pipeline in to reach Western Europe. So, a lot of this stuff here is really, again, geopolitical, petrodollar type of trade. And, the American public constantly gets caught up in the middle of this because it's always played out as a good guy, bad guy type of situation. This is the Middle East. It's all bad guys. There are no good guys. Am I going to poison you or shoot you? Your choice. The outcome is still the same. It's death. Whoever you pair up with over there, think about it. Saudi Arabia is the biggest sponsor of oppression of women when you sit back and look. At least in Egypt, women could drive cars. In Libya, people could drive cars. I didn't see people's heads getting cut off in Libya from the government. I don't see people's hands getting cut off in places like that.
All good points here, X, when you mentioned Benghazi, and for individuals that might just be learning about the Independent Gazette, we have a couple cartoonists now on board that's helping us to write some political cartoons, and I got to tell you, one just came across the One came across the board yesterday about Benghazi and Hillary. So you wait till you see the Hillary cartoon and Benghazi and everything else Miss Hillary has been up to. I think you're going to get a chuckle out of that. Also, we got one coming about Ann Coulter, which we'll bring up a little bit too, who believes that libertarians need to be drowned if they vote for anybody but a Republican in any U.S. Senate race. But on that note, we're going to take a break. We'll be back. You listen to Sanity Check 94.3 FM, The Talker.
So wake me up when it's all over, when I'm wiser and I'm older. All this time I was finding myself and I didn't know I was lost. So wake me up.
Wake me up. 94.3, we do need to be woken up, and we got Gary on the line. He's going to wake us up. Good morning, Gary.
Morning, guys. How is everybody this morning?
We're doing good, Gary. How are you?
Good. I just listened to X talk about arming the Syrians in the Libya Benghazi deal, and I couldn't agree with him more, and I've been saying this since it all came down. Republicans put off hearings and put off the investigation that Trey Gowdy is going now. There's got to be a lot of people in Washington involved in that knew about that they're keeping it, the hush-hush on it. I would say the same things with the gun trafficking. They've kept this quiet for a long time. There's got to be a lot of Republicans and Democrats that knew what were going on there. I made a couple of calls yesterday to Republican congressmen, asking why their bosses voted so quickly to give authority to Obama in the administration to bomb. And the one aide told me that they didn't give authority. They only, and I realized that. I said, you gave authority to a president that didn't ask for it. And he corrected me and said, we only voted to fund it, not to give him authority to do it. And this is the small talk. And we're talking about corrupt politicians and not following the Constitution. We have a president, and we have people, Lou Barletta, Tom Marino, and other people that ran for the first time 4 years ago for Congress. They've never passed a budget. Our country hasn't had a budget in the whole time Obama's been president. We keep running on the continuing resolution, which are against our laws and our Constitution. And yet these people get a paycheck. They're home on vacation once again, campaigning, and we don't have a budget in this country. And we're fighting in Syria and around the world, putting our young men and women in danger. We can't even secure our own border. And Texas officials said within the last 2 weeks that they are pretty sure known terrorists have come across our border. So we're fighting this world battle on terror, and yet we will not secure our own border. That's all I have today, guys. Thanks a lot.
Gary, you have a bunch of bobbleheads over here in the studio. Everybody's shaking their head. Yes, yes, yes. Michael X, who wants to jump in first?
Well, Gary, I couldn't agree. First of all, it was a great way of articulating your message. It was clear, concise, and I appreciate that. And he is right. The stories, and we have all, I know, at least in that studio, have called our representatives and asked questions, and you get the diversion answer. And we are not individuals that are, if we're intellectual enough to call and worry about it, we expect an intellectual answer, not a bypassing of what the truth might be. So that is extremely frustrating to me, Lou, how we get constantly pushed aside. And it is, once again, we've been talking all morning about this is not a Democrat Party or Republican Party. It is an American problem. And based on the fact that we have two parties that are allowed to be staying in control, uncontested essentially. So we have a lot of work to do, Lou, but I think that the word is getting out, and I believe that people are becoming more aware of how they've been really deceived over the multiple decades that we have.
And we certainly understand the political ramifications for individuals bucking their party, but once again, we have to start looking at these things and saying, is this an American? Are you supporting the American party, or are you supporting your individual party? And that's where the criticisms lie. X, you got it.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the great thing of I can spend all day just criticizing the left for being hypocritical about their supposed protections of left issues.
And you have.
I can spend all day, and I can spend all day going through the right and going through their supposed fiscal conservative free market principles, which they seem to violate left and right when it's convenient for them. So, what happens is most people try to attack the left from the right and the right from the left, and the answer is you don't have to do that. Both parties basically undermine their positions, and again, like going back to Eric Holder, if you had spoken to a person that was going to vote for Obama in 2008, and you explained that the attorney general he's going to put in place, and you went to the people at Occupy Wall Street and said, the attorney general will be so incompetent that he'll let all of these big companies off with just fines, and not a single person will serve jail. Oh, I forgot. Bernie Madoff will go to jail because he robbed money from rich people. But everybody else who gets ripped off, the rest of the Joe Average guys, don't worry. It'll be business as usual. This will be just factored into our cost of doing business. And one of the things that stood out again is the companies like HSBC, Wells Fargo, Wachovia were caught red-handed laundering international drug cartel money to the tune of hundreds of billions of dollars. And nobody went to jail. But God forbid some bank teller took in a couple of dollars from somebody and they didn't do the OFAC verification. They would lose their job. So the lesson for everyone is, if you get to a certain point, you become impossible to jail, because if I put you in jail, somebody, a company might have to reorganize themselves. But nothing for the small bagel owner. Okay, it never works that way.
The poor bagel owners there,
Honestly,
Frank.
or the teller. They're done.
Or the teller, you're done. We're going to wrap this side of up, with, I guess, what we've been talking about, certainly, and certainly talking about, I guess, elections in general. But this past week, if folks didn't hear, Ann Coulter wants to drown libertarians who will be voting for libertarians in any U.S. Senate. This came from actually a friend of mine in California, and sadly, due to Prop 14, Top 2, he won't even have a choice there in California. But he went on to say, whenever I hear attacks against us or our candidates, I'm reminded of the great Gandhi quote, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win. For years, they ignored us and they laughed at us, but now they're fighting us. I don't like the fact that the GOP is going after us to challenge us on ballot access, which we've pointed out all over the place throughout the country. But it is a sign we're making progress. Damn the petitos, full speed ahead. And I think that's what's happening, Michael, and I think you're going to see it more and more when there is no choice and when it becomes very apparent and very clear that certain individuals and certain parties are putting up barriers. It really turns people off, and all I would suggest for any of these two major parties, more and more people are registering independent, and they're looking at the candidates, not the party. And if you continue to just spout the party line, you're going to continue to lose more and more voters, and then we all lose, because what we really need to do is look at individuals that are true constitutionalists and are willing to support the Constitution, Michael.
Well, Lou, and I just want to bring up a point when you talked about, folks who don't want to go against their party and how, or if you do go against your party, you're shunned. And I just wanted to, just a quick example when I was running for Luzerne County Council, and as a Republican, I had a response that said from a higher up Republican individual that said, Michael, I think you're the best one out there, but I can't support you and I can't vote for you because you're not supporting the Republican Party.
Yeah.
And I always go back to that, Lou. And that's not poor Michael scenario. That's just to tell the folks that this is what really goes on.
And that was a learning experience.
And so how can you go on to vote or support a group of individuals and parties who really want to control your entire thought process? I want individuals out there who really want to shake it up, who want new ideas. And whether that's a libertarian or a standalone Republican, or however
independent
it may be,
or whatever, Michael, right?
Exactly. So this is what people have to be aware of. Those things really do happen.
Right. And regardless of your party, we just need honest people willing to uphold, support, and defend the Constitution as they swear to.
As they swear to. Michael, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to stay on local issues. The last segment here on Sanity Check, we want to talk about what's happening in Kirby Park, what happened in Dunmore community meeting. Maybe we could get to the foreclosure mania. Frank, we got Bruce Levine on the line. He's going to chime in. So we'll be back. You listen to 94.3 FM The Talker.
4.3 FM The Talker.
Just know you're not alone, 'cause I'm gonna make this place your home.
No, you're not alone. Really, that's pretty. I guess right there what we're trying to say. And you listen to 94.3 FM, The Talker Sanity Check, and Bruce Levine is on the line. And Bruce, I think that's very poignant. Actually, you're here to tell people they're not alone. Correct?
Correct. Hey, good morning.
Good morning,
Lou and Frank and Steph. How you guys doing?
We're doing good.
Great.
Awesome. It hits the point. That's what I've been doing for about 5 years, and what the group has been doing is to let people know that they're not alone. And the kudos and the props and the credit that I get from community members is just that. Now people feel like they have an outlet, a resource. I was told by somebody that's been fighting corruption and exposing corruption in Luzerne and Lackawanna County yesterday, that if it were not for groups like what we do with your help, Lou, and what I've been doing for a few years here, we would be back 20 years ago. It would be 20 years ago, and it would just be one way. There wouldn't be any, nobody would be covering it, but by tenacity, a lot of consistency, really keeping our foot on the gas, using social media, viral media, people like yourself jumping on board, Sue Henry on board from another station. You have people like Brian Hughes from another media outlet. You have some local media now actually paying attention to what we're doing. That's really critical. And people are getting to your point, Lou. People are not alone. They know they're not alone any longer, and we're letting them know that. And we're a lifeline. We really have become a lifeline for these individuals, as you know intimately, Lou.
And you're right, Bruce, and certainly what we've been able to do with Sanity Check and Independent Gazette and David Madeira giving us a voice and getting to a bigger audience. It's almost like a snowball now, Bruce, and we need to keep that going. What's happening today? And I think that you want to just make sure that folks understand and what's
Sure.
going on at Kirby Park today. Starts at 11 o'clock.
Sure.
Just tell me a little bit more about that.
Sure, absolutely. It put together a fairly impromptu event only in the last few weeks. People said, let's get together before the fall. Let's get together because there's an election coming up, and you know how important that is, Lou, much more than I do even. So really I used my group and used people in the community with your help to put together a Strengthening Families, Restoring Liberty and Justice gathering rally that will be held today. Today is Saturday, and it'll be from 11 to 3 at Kirby Park in Wilkes-Barre, and it's Pavilion number 1. Pavilion number 1 is near the track. And not only will we have hot dogs and great weather and
Hey,
great
wait a minute.
people,
I
which
think
is
Betsy
important.
Summers is cooking hot dogs there today, correct?
Betsy assured me she's bringing 80-plus hot dogs and buns and a whole list of things. And we filled in some of the gaps with chips and baked beans, and some other people
All
from
right.
Lackawanna County are bringing things. And Judy Laura Fisher, who I'll talk about in just a minute, she's bringing things. So it's a real get-together, a real community event, everybody chipping in and doing their part. So in short here, what you have is Andy Ostrowski, who is running for Congress for PA District 11, will be showing up and will be speaking. Betsy Summers, who is the candidate for District 121 House of Representatives, will be there. Larry Howell, who is the author of Luzerne County Railroad. Anybody can Google that for those that don't know. And that's
Outrageous book.
And that's a great book. It's a story about corruption in the American judicial system, and it'll shake you, man. It'll shake you. And Larry even says, and I spoke to Larry yesterday, and I tell people this for the last 4 or 5 years, if you don't think it could get worse, the fact is it can get worse. And he goes ahead and shows that it can get worse in his book. And the other speaker that we have on board is Judy Laura Fisher, and who, if for people that don't know, the Kids for Cash scandal, of course, and the Kids for Cash documentary. Well, Judy interviewed children, including her niece, Amanda Laura, who was featured in the documentary. So she does that work, and she's been fighting for years as a citizen's advocate for the rights of foster children as well in our community here in Luzerne County. So it's a great event. Others can come up and speak and get to meet people. It's a resource center. That's what we are. We're a resource center, and we're providing. It's a place to get educated, get engaged, provide support. What we do is provide support, encouragement. That I think maybe lastly, and maybe most importantly, is hope. There is a light. There is a light. People know now that they're not alone. When I got involved and was brought into family court roughly 5-6 years ago, I was all alone. And no longer is that the case. That's critical. And I appreciate your involvement, all you do there, Lou.
Oh, and our whole team, and certainly you too, Bruce, and what you're doing is growing, what we're doing is growing, and we're bringing it once again. I think what's important about this too, Bruce, is that certainly this is not political, really. I mean, we look at certain individuals, and it can be political because we have to get individuals in the state legislature, in the Congress, that are willing to stand up and talk against their party. That's one side of it. But on the other side of it is that many people that are going to be there from all different kinds of. They're not coming there from the political side. They're coming from an ideological side, saying, "Wait a minute, they do have, they need help, they need support, and they want to talk about their cases, and they want to talk about what's happened to them in the courts." And as you say, it's a resource, and that to me is extremely valuable too. Once again, it should be also valuable to to people running for office, because you're not always preaching to the choir there.
It's great. You mentioned they want to talk about their struggles. You're right. There is a political component to this, but it is more than that. I think a social humanitarian thing. I mentioned that we're a lifeline. This, to me, is a life or death matter, and I mean that sincerely and directly. And I would speak on this in future, and has been speaking about this. The damage that's done by virtue of the family court system and injustice, the damage that's done is a trickle-down domino effect that impacts the core of the family unit. Children that are crying to see their parents, parents that are crying to see their children. And what happens often, Lou, and it's a very sad case, and I've said it before, and it's reality, people resort to drugs, alcohol, therapy, medicine, sadly even suicide, and also writing the children off, writing their loving children off, because they're down to the core. Their soul is the only thing left. They've lost all money on attorneys. They've jumped into the system where there's no justice. So I mean this, it's life or death. So this is a critical issue. I don't know if there's a more important issue locally to the fabric of our community and to families. So again, this is where we're at. And today is a day that people could come out, turn out, and really be heard. Be heard, talk to people that have walked the walk, been in their shoes, and can help them move forward.
And I'm glad you brought some of these individuals on that you're doing, like Larry Ho and certainly the Kids for Cash people, and it's important. And once again, we're bringing folks. Bruce, we're running out of time. We'll be co-hosting that event today together, and I'll look forward to seeing you a little bit later on today. And thanks for calling in, Michael.
Same here, brother. Thank you
betcha,
guys.
Michael. That this makes me feel good about what we started 3 years ago. Really is that we're giving people a voice, and that's and to me, and I know to you also, and X, and you've been right part of this, and our team here, Frank and John and so many of the individuals that have really helped. And it's just not the people that are literally doing the work; it's the folks that have stood by us right from the start too. And the Bob Butzes of the world, and I had an opportunity to talk to Bob, and I told him he's grandfathered in. I don't care how big we get. We're going to be putting this message out, his message out, from now until maybe for years and years and years to come. And I can't say enough to everybody really that have stood by us, and because this is not an individual thing. I mean, no one individual could do it. No one person could do it. No. It's truly been I guess a love. I mean, really, a love for what we're doing, and why we're doing it, Michael, is to make a real difference. And I think Bruce might have just hit it on the head here too. Is that's what's happening, and it makes me proud, and I know it makes you proud too, Michael.
It does, Lou, and we've done a lot of things. And back to Bruce, the same thing is occurring here and being questioned in Texas is why is this particular department really interfering where their children should be, interfering with the families, interfering with the bond. And so it's not just the Pennsylvania, Luzerne, Lackawanna County thing here. It's throughout the nation, Lou. So creating this awareness is certainly really what we've come out to do.
And certainly the rally today is strengthening families, and there's many ways to do that, and we've been critical. X, you have your last parting moment, last parting thoughts.
Just again, the free and open exchange of ideas is the best way for us to solve solutions and come to peaceful agreements. And again, everything we can do to increase that dialogue is only going to collectively help everyone. Even if the positions we talk about are wrong, at least it's out there for discussion and debate, and that's what we're never afraid to do is debate.
Bingo, and that's why we need to have more people even on the ballot.
Right.
Frank, we didn't get to a foreclosure mania today. Certainly there's been a problem. You've been on the forefront of all the foreclosures. We need to talk about that next week.
Right. It's an epidemic in this area, and my office is a very small, I keep saying this, we're a very small office in Glen Lyon, Pennsylvania, Nowhereville, USA, and we are handling anywhere from 3 to 12 a day processing. It's crazy. I mean, this is every day. Today is the slowest day I have in 2 weeks. I have one on my list to do on my way home from this show. That's it.
Amazing, huh, Michael? I mean, and talking to Frank, and he says, Lou, he says, I'm just buried. He said,
Right.
you're buried in work, right?
I can't see out. I sit at the computer for about 12 hours a day processing foreclosure.
And then your wife is out taking pictures of the
Honest to
homes
God.
and everything else like
But
that.
don't worry,
so-
guys. Things are getting better. Everybody says it's getting better.
If you count record homelessness as getting better, I guess we're on the right track here.
Michael, the music is on. We're done. You got the
God
last
bless
word.
all.
God bless everybody. We'll talk to you next week. We'll see you at Kirby Park maybe later on today.